Hey, hello, what's up everyone? Welcome back to lesson number 2 of the SwiftUI Firebase chat application series. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you're ready to pretty much pick up where we left off in the last video. The very last lesson, I showed you guys how to build out the login view, which is right here. You can see login view. And if you run this code in the preview on the simulator, you'll get this application here. So I'll just simply run this in the iPhone 13 Pro, which is right here. I'm gonna hit Command R and everything should be fine. If you guys missed the last lesson, you can find the link down below. We are here, login view, and if we hit the create account right here, you'll see the message down below, which is this bit of code. Let me just scroll down a little bit here. And it's pretty much the handle action here with these two print statements. Okay, so that's pretty good. This video, I'm gonna show you guys how to integrate the actual authentication process inside of our application. So in other words, if we look at the more completed version of our application, which is right here, I can register for a brand new account using this page. So that's going to look somewhat like this. I'm going to click into that, click on the dog picture, and let's just call this doggy1@gmail.com. I'll hit 123 and 123 for the password. Now, the next thing is to actually hit the create account. This is going to create an account inside of Firebase Auth. It's also going to save the image inside of storage. I think we'll take care of the image in a later video. All I want to do is to show you guys how to integrate Firebase Auth inside of your app. Okay, so that's not going to be that complicated. I'll show you guys how to do that right now. Let me just sign out of that. And the first thing we need to do here is to actually install the Firebase pod for auth and storage. You don't really need to use a pod. You can actually use SPM, which is the Swift Package Manager. I'll show you guys what that looks like right now. I'm going to drag in, let me just say Firebase SPM. I'll drag in this tab here. And let me just drag this guy in, which is right here. And if you type in Firebase SPM instead of Google, you'll get this link to pretty much show up. Now, right here are some of the directions for how to de-integrate a CocoaPod if you need to, but our project is a brand new project, and the way to install Firebase Auth is pretty simple. You just want to copy this link here, and I think we're pretty much done. So it tells you to open up the SPM dependency manager, and you can do that by clicking into Xcode. And I'm just going to say file packages and try to add a package. It doesn't really work that way anymore. So you actually have to go inside of your target here. And if you click on the target, you can go inside of your project there. And now, instead of Xcode 13 is a package dependency. Next thing is to click into that. And then you'll get your search or enter package URL here. I already have some things saved as recently used. That's kind of why it's showing up. I'm going to paste in that URL from the Safari browser. And then we have these options here. I'm going to add it to my current project. And you'll see I'm using the version of 8.0.0. So whatever version you're using, just make sure to make a note of that. We'll use this version a little bit later on, but 8.0.0 is just fine for now. I'm going to keep that dependency rule there and add this package. Now, when you add things through SPM, which is this box behind here, Swift Package Manager, it's going to verify the actual GitHub repository, and it's going to fetch all of the available dependencies first, and then it's going to present you with a dialog next. Now, the next dialog allows you to kind of select which pod or which library you want to include in your project. For today's video, we are going to use Firebase Auth And I'll also install Firebase storage as well. So you can see this process can take a little long if you haven't done this in a while. I think the last version I tried to install was below 8.0. So it's kind of taking a while to download everything. All right, the next thing you need to do is you want to select Firebase Auth because that's what we'll be using. Later on, we'll be using Firebase Firestore. So if you want to install Firestore right now, you can do that through this checkbox. But there's actually a faster way to install Firestore, or there's a better way to install Firestore is what I mean. So I'm going to leave that blank. I don't want to install it through the SPM. And finally, we have Firebase storage, and just hit add package here. And you'll see your dependencies appear on the left side panel there. So that's pretty good. I'm going to hit run one more time and we should be okay. The reason why I'm not installing Firestore just yet is because I noticed that when you install Firestore through SPM, it's actually really slow to compile the project. Sometimes it takes my computer, my M1 Mac Mini, it takes it like 35 seconds to a minute to compile the project. So there's actually a faster way through CocoaPods to install Firestore. Okay, all that being said, you can see our project is now running in the iPhone 13 Pro simulator, which is looking good. Nothing's broken, so that's always a good sign. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is to actually, install Firebase as the SDK, which is already done, and we want to initialize this SDK. One simple way of doing this is to go ahead and create some kind of init function inside of this view. So let me just do that here. I'm going to say somewhere on line 16, you can create some kind of init function like this here. And this init should be okay. We can initialize some things such as the Firebase SDK. Next, I am going to head to the top of this file and just import Firebase. Importing this imports pretty much everything that you have available. So you can just do this right here, Firebase and app, and you want to configure your application. All right, that is pretty much all I'm going to do for now. If you run this, you should see a crash inside of your console area here. And that's pretty good. It's always a good thing to demonstrate the crashes in your app. You'll see if you scroll up somewhere right here, it's going to tell you what the crash is. Reading this right here, Firebase app configure could not find a valid Google info plist inside your project. I'm going to assume that a lot of you have done this installation process already, so I'll run through this relatively quickly. Before Firebase can initialize, right, you need the Google info plist configuration, and it's really easy to generate one. The way I'm going to do this is to head inside of the Safari browser, which is here. And, I'm going to also assume that you have a project created already. The website is consolefirebasegoogle.com. You should appear on this page once you log in. I'm going to start from scratch just to make sure everything is working for my project. I'm going to say LBTA. Let's go with SwiftUI Firebase chat. And you'll see some things automatically populate right here. I'm going to hit enter. And once you enter, you should have this screen here. Now, I don't really care about some of these options here, so I'll just remove these functions. You'll see it's all disabled now. I can always enable them later on, but I'm kind of a fan of installing the least amount of components possible whenever you can do so. And, I'll just disable everything for now. Everything should be fine. Once this is done, which should take another few seconds here, once it's done, it's going to present you with a few more things to configure. You have your dashboard. I guess this is what you call this page here. And you have your, your main options on the left side for Firebase. Next, I'm going to go ahead and get started with my iOS app. Down here, the bundle ID, you need to get it from your project. So I'll drag this to the right there. And I'm going to click on this and the target here. I'm going to go ahead and take my bundle ID. Make sure whatever you have here as your bundle ID, it should be right here. It's probably different from what I have, so make sure you copy the right thing. It has to actually match whatever is in your project, so make sure it's the correct one. These two fields are optional, so again, I'll leave that as blank. Okay, I think that should be fine. Click on this to download your info plist. And then all that's left is to drag this plist that you downloaded into your project. And then I should be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Finder here and drag that file in. I'm going to drag this guy right over here, right below the login view. Click into that and we should be okay. Now, this is my third time downloading this info plist, so it has that 3 right there. Make sure to remove it and make sure that your bundle ID is the correct one, which is this here. And you should be good to go. I'm going to hit the run. When I run, because I now have my plist, you will see that you no longer have a crash inside of your application. You'll get this really long warning. Should I fix this warning for you? I guess I should. I really hate seeing these messages inside of my console. The way to fix this is, well, there's this complaint about these constraints, and I don't really know why it does that by default, but inside of SwiftUI, when you have a navigation view, you have this warning down there just by default. So I'm gonna go down to my navigation view and provide it with a navigation view style of stacked navigation view style. Once you do that, hopefully that long ass error will go away. And it looks like that fix actually works, which is good. Okay, that is pretty much all I wanted to do with Firebase Auth. And again, things are not crashing, so that's always a good sign. If you go back to your Firebase setup, you'll see it tells you to install things through CocoaPods, which obviously we're not doing. We're just using SPM, which is somewhat faster. I'm going to include this bit of code. You'll see Firebase app configure. It tells you to use the app delegate, but we're using SwiftUI, so things have changed quite a lot. Just click next, just skip that. And then you can go to your console and you'll see your newly created app is going to exist here, which is good. All right, the last thing we need to set up here is the authentication, this little tab on the left side. I'm going to click on Get Started, and that's going to enable your application to sign in. This page, I noticed, looks pretty different compared to a few months ago. I guess it's been improved. I'm not really sure, but all you want to do is to click on email and password. Go ahead and hit enable and hit save, and you should be okay. If you don't have this enabled, you'll get a crash when you try to log in. So make sure to enable this email password thing. Okay, I think that should be enough. I'm going to drag the Safari browser out of the way. And let's see. I think I'm good to start authenticating a user inside of my code now. I don't think I need that, so I'll minimize that. And if I'm inside of my project here, and if I hit create account, right, you'll see register a new account inside of Firebase, which is this bit of code on line 80. Now, I'm just going to say create new account as a brand new function. So whenever it's possible, just use private function, create new account. I think this is what I want to do here. I'll comment this out for now. Don't need the print statement. And to create a brand new Firebase account, you just want to say Firebase. No, I think you want to say auth like that and auth. And then inside of here, I think you can say sign in with email and password if you have an existing user. But if you don't have a user, so in our case right now, we don't have a user. So I'll use create user with email and password. Currently, we have the state variables of email and password. You don't really need the self, so I'll just remove that. Hopefully that, I don't know, maybe that's easier to read. For this completion, just hit enter. And the moment that you do that, you'll have the results right here. I think I'll just call that result or res, whatever you want. And this is your error. If there is a error that occurs, you just simply want to say fail to create a user. And then instead of here, just type in the error here. Maybe I'll just call this ERR, and that's a little better. Obviously, if that happens, you simply want to bail is what we call this return statement, and you should be fine. And then lastly, if you have reached this line of code, you can say successfully created user, and I will print something else as well. So the result has the UID, I believe, and I think this is okay. I believe this is optional, and this right here is also an optional. So I'm going to try to run this, and you should be fine. Result ID, I think this has something like the user on it. And is that an optional as well? Probably. Okay. I just hit Command R to run this application. And I guess I can try to create a user now. So this is the moment of truth here. I'm going to say LBTA user, hit the escape at gmail.com, 123 and 123. Now I'm going to hit the create account, and you'll see that down below inside of the console, we have successfully created a user, and this is the result user.uid, which is this long bit of string. You'll see if you go back into the Safari browser, up here, you can go to Authentication, and there's this Users tab here, right? You'll see you have your newly created user of LBTA user or whatever you typed in here for your email. And then the UID is whatever is showing up inside of the console below, which is KBOE. And this is pretty much how a user is created inside of a Firebase Auth. And that's pretty good. One thing that you want to do if you're creating an account is you might want to make sure that your account is being created correctly. So what I mean is if you have some kind of error message, I'm just going to do this here. So state var and error. So I'm going to say error message like that. And I will simply set this as the empty string there. And then for this guy, whenever I have an error, I'm going to say self.error message equals this right here. So quotes, and I'll put the error message inside of this string interpolation, and I should be okay. Maybe I'll call this a login status message. It might be a little better. And then finally, I will do this here, and I will do that equals that. So let me just put a self in front of the statement, and I'll put that here as well. And then I should be okay. I'll correct this line now, and I think that should be fine. The last thing I want to do is right below, let's say I am inside of my application here, right? Right below the create account button, which is right here, I'm going to show the error message or the login status message. Simply going to say this right here, login status message, and let's just say foreground color of red, and I will run this using Command R. Once we are here, you'll see that if I type in lbtauser@gmail.com, if I try to create this account right here, you'll see it's going to fail because the email address is already in use by another account. And obviously I have this user already. If I type in this with a 1, hit the create, you'll see that right here, I've successfully created my user. So that's pretty much how the login process works. All that we have left to do is instead of creating an account, right? We are going to instead want to use the login as well. In other words, whenever we handle the action right here, we still have to handle this if statement, or this clause rather. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to say login user, and this is a brand new function, which I'll have below. Fun stuff here. Login user and auth.auth. We will say sign in with email and password, which is that. Email. Let's see. Tab password is that. Hit that, and I'll just say res and error. Did I use result? I guess I'll use result again. Instead of here, we will use something very similar. I'm just gonna copy these statements below, and everything should be fine. So I'm just gonna modify this to be failed to login user. And let's see, failed to login user is here. Successfully logged in as user with that statement there. And I will copy this as well. So let's just make this all nice and tidy. Okay. I believe everything should be working now. So this right here, let's use lbtauser@gmail.com. Finally, 123 log in here. And now we've successfully logged in as this user. If I try to log in as LBTA user 1, you'll see it's going to log in. And the user 1 has a different ID. That's why the UID is changing. If you finally go back to the Firebase console, you can now hit the refresh button on the right side. And you'll see both of your users appear inside of your console area. And that's pretty good. We've successfully created 2 users inside of Firebase, which is exactly what we want to do here. If you hit resume on the preview, I believe this should work. Getting Firebase's functionalities to be working in the preview is always very, very tricky. So I'm just going to hit resume one more time. And this right here, it seems to be kind of crashing. Again, default app has already been configured. So I'm going to hit the stop right here and hit the play one more time. So for whatever reason, whenever you're trying to call the Firebase app configure, if you call this more than once, then the application will crash. That's kind of why it's saying default app has been already configured. So there's actually a better way of fixing this issue with your preview. And I guess what I will do is to maybe introduce that fix kind of at the end of this video here. I'm simply going to create some kind of singleton object is what you can call this. I'm going to say Firebase Manager and let this guy be some kind of NS object. It doesn't really matter what you inherit, but I just like to inherit NS object. And inside of this, I'm going to use the Firebase app configure, and we'll configure that. And then once you have your app configured, I'm going to use this to also contain the auth of Firebase Auth. In other words, I just want to say auth and let this be of auth right here. I think that's what I want. And inside of here, I think I need to override that guy. And I think I need to call init here. And then I'll say self.auth equals auth and auth like so. And I will try to resume this inside of my application. I'll try to run again. And you'll see this needs the super.init. And I will try to run my application. Okay, if I run, you'll see things appear right here. Should be fine. You'll see the preview is also running again. You'll see the green dot there. And we're not really using Firebase Manager just yet. So what I'll do is I'm going to utilize this singleton is what you can call it. I'm going to say static let shared equals Firebase Manager here. This is my singleton object. And I'm going to use the auth that belongs to shared. First, I'll wipe out the init there. I don't want to like constantly initialize my Firebase app if I don't have to. And below, I'll just go down to the actual login user here. And I will say, let's see, Firebase shared and auth like so. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time for here. Finally, I'm going to hit the resume. Now, again, you'll get your preview to work correctly. And then if you create your user or log in, right? LBTA user1 at gmail.com, 123, and log in. You'll see using your singleton of Firebase Manager, we're allowed access to just use the auth that belongs on the singleton. This way, the preview doesn't crash. So it took me a while to figure out why it was crashing and some kind of proper fix for it. So if you're running into issues using the preview and Firebase, make sure to try this singleton style fix here. We're going to be including things like storage as well for some of these properties. And, this way we can still use the preview, which is faster than launching our code over and over again. Okay, quite the long video, but I think for the most part, things are working pretty much to what I would expect. If you guys have any questions or comments about this entire process, please leave a comment down below. Next video, I think we'll start working on storage of, including your image for your user. And then once we have that, we'll start working on Firestore and, more things related to user data. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Enjoy.